my Father reaffirms. So if you receive it in the spirit it's given in, it just resets you back out. It instantly writes out all the corrupted code, all the malware, and you just threw the devil the biggest left hook imaginable.
That was such a toxic situation. Put on a platform way too early.
Yeah.
My character wasn't refined nearly enough. My marriage was getting ready to go through the worst years.
On the backside of all the marital hell you're talking about.
Right.
And if they're good at what they do, they'll be able to read you like an open book. They'll see the wheels spinning. They'll know what's making you tick. Because we usually have a tell. Entities with insight, we grasp, and then they know our weakness because they know what we're chasing.
What if I told you you were meant for something more? And what if at first sight your birthright was inked in blood? And what if dominion was written in big bold letters? And what if we shouldn't just occupy but overcome? And what if the observation of opposition was us? Antikemi, the podcast.
And welcome back. We just want to say thank you for tuning in live.
Yes.
Or whatever time.
Or whatever.
You may be listening.
Thanks for being here.
To the Antikemi podcast. I am one half of your host. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Shules.
And we will be so privileged to have you lock in with us for however long we'll be talking. Man, I was just thinking the other day how we have the privilege to even do this.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's not something that I take for granted. Something that we've talked about for a long time doing. And I'm happy that when we finally, got the green light, we decided to smash down that pedal. All systems go.
And not let off.
And I'm excited about that, we get to do this. And I know.
I had to repeat that to myself like 50 times on the drive over.
It's something that has been kind of co-opted, especially in church culture. And I think it's been abused a little bit of how we put that level of pressure on volunteers.
This is
a privilege for you to be here at 4 a.m.
This is tearing your marriage and your family apart, but we get to do this.
We get to do this.
Right.
But I want to I want to take it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because it's been abused in certain cultures, I don't think that it's wrong necessarily for us to have an attitude or a heart posture of it's a privilege to stand behind a microphone, have a voice, and be able to speak inside somebody's life for a moment. I say all the time that people who give you their attention, that's like a currency.
It is.
Because people don't just give attention, they pay attention.
Yes, sir.
And so the fact that you are paying attention for however long that you are, we consider it a privilege. And I just want to say thank you for that. And hopefully we add value, to your day, to your time. And this is something that you look forward to tapping into every single week.
Yeah, we never want to traffic in attention because that's what the whole system is doing, is trafficking in attention and energy. So when someone's attention is here, we consider that sacred because we want to steward that attention.
Yeah.
Not whatever. Not maximize our benefit from it or whatever. But I do want to say, because this was already kind of in my spirit before you started saying that, but it relates. For years, I've had things in my spirit that I really felt like they sure had helped me. And if I could find a way to get them out to somebody else, I had a feeling they could help somebody else too. And I want to encourage somebody else that may have something like that too, because sometimes it feels like that stuff will never come to fruition. But if you stay faithful and don't get bitter, don't let envy and jealousy in when you see others, live in your dream or whatever. God has a really interesting way about making those things happen in his time and his way. And I just was thinking tonight about how often when I had looked into things like podcasting, man, the barrier to entry to a lot of this stuff is much higher than people think it is. On a technicality, it's really low because you could turn on the native camera, the native mic in whatever device you're watching this on, and technically you could have a channel. People do that. And man, if you've really, 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 really got something to say and it's really pertinent to the moment, sometimes people just hit that way. But that's like catching lightning in a bottle. Usually you have to do some extra work to be able to build in a level of excellence that people can put up with your presentation for long enough to figure out that you might have something to say, right? And that part is where the barrier to entry can start to get higher than you'd think it would. Many times, like countless times probably, I've done enough research to know like what a good starting setup would be, and the basics of 3-point lighting, and you know what I mean, and I
have all those YouTube searches too.
Right. And then I would like make a list on Amazon and whatever, and then I wouldn't have the nerve to talk to Brooke about it because everything I've ever wanted to do in our lives has cost her left arm, and so
that Pastor Brooke catches strays 10 minutes in.
Poor thing has to run the budget in our home. And, so even at the church, like it's just not every day you're going to run out and get a whole mic and lighting set up. And, so I just can't tell you how many times I've gotten to that point. And then even if you did because a couple times I've bought like the really starter setup, and then you start getting into like the technicalities and what softwares, and then they start getting into like technical production terms, and my eyes glaze over. And so then God brings you guys alongside us, and you've actually you and all your personalities you and your good thing, and you guys have actually like low-key done some of this several times and helped other people do it, and I kind of see you on the flip side of that, like where you've run the test balloon up several times, enough that you've got good equipment, good know-how. You may not have known the post-production side 2 months ago or 3 months ago when we started all this, but you kind of knew how to know it. Like, it blew me away to watch you go in 1 week, basically, and you just deep dived, fell all the way down the rabbit hole and came up the other side with episode 1, which has just been cranking up views ever since.
Right.
And so, but you had like a setup, and you knew how to know kind of by the grace of God what we needed to know. But you kind of had content that you had recorded and hadn't used, and so it was like the flip of my situation. Yeah. And then God put us together, and so I want to encourage somebody, like, keep perfecting the product that God's put in you. Keep learning and growing, and don't think that just because the moment hasn't come to you yet where you saw the way forward. We've talked about the other side of this before. Don't wait forever. But then there's sometimes people are in delay.
Yeah.
Don't be discouraged because if you release wine too early, it's just bad grape juice. So I all of that was coming together for me tonight, and then I was just thinking about this aspect of it. Just so y'all know, we don't really talk about this, but I'm kind of having a spoiled experience on this podcast because I come in, there's lights on, there's cameras at the ready, and we sit down and you tell me where to put my mic, and then we have these anointed conversations, and then we hang out for a few minutes and encourage each other, and I leave, and then a few days later an episode goes live. And I know, because for one thing, I know how quiet you go afterward. The level of work that's going in behind the scenes is actually kind of bananas. The sweat equity you've got into this is just mind-boggling. So please let me say this to those of you that are catching these episodes. If they are blessing you, we know we're in a learning process. We know sometimes we go too long. We know we get it all. I get it. Yeah. And sometimes, we struggle to find the pocket for how to have the conversation we're trying to have, and real time. Yeah. And a lot of that, I think, is just built into what we feel like the Lord is asking us to do with this. But some of it is just inexperience, and it's all there. If you're being blessed by this, if it is helping you in any way, shape, or form, can I just, we haven't made a big deal of this, but can I just ask you, please tell somebody about it, share it, or and always, honestly, always, the like and the comment for the sake of the algorithm is always a massive blessing. Yeah. But if this is helping you in your journey, and somebody else that's trying to find their way through the noise in this hour and identify truth and wisdom, do us a favor, spread the word, because we really feel like God has called us to do this. But it is mind-blowing to me how much of an expenditure of energy this does take on your side of the equation. And so I just want to openly kind of be transparent with our viewers and just say, hey, help us if you're being helped, please. Let's get the word out as much as we can, because all we want to know is that it's having an impact. If it's having an impact for the kingdom, it's all more than worthwhile. And that we don't have specific numbers or metrics attached to that or what that'll look like. But we just want to know that it's making a difference in somebody's walk. And if it is, do us a favor, help us out.
I appreciate you saying that. You definitely don't have to say that. I find it to be just part of my mandate, I think. As I was kind of pondering and asking God, okay, what's my purpose for this season right now? Because I just want to be all in on whatever God has me doing in the season that I should be doing it. Yeah. I have found myself at times doing things out of season. Right. And I'm putting all the work and time and excellence into that thing, but it's out of season. Yeah. And so there was no wind on it. There was no real push behind it. And then you're battling discouragement. You're battling, doubt, just anxiety. Man. And you're feeling a certain kind of way, but a lot of it's self-inflicted just because you did not have a level of discernment on what I should be doing right now. I'm reminded of the prayer Jesus taught his disciples to pray. Give us this day our daily bread. So whatever that we need to sustain us for today, Lord, provide it. And that's something that we don't have to beg for. We're just asking our Father, with the relationship that we have with our Father, to provide us. But I've gone so far as like, Lord God, give us this day our daily bread. Lord, help me to know and understand what I should be doing today as I plan for the future, as I maybe review what's happened in the past. Yeah. But Lord, let me not lose the plot for today. Like, what should I be doing today? I'm putting my hand to the plow. I'm pushing. I'm moving forward. But I don't want to get caught and lost in the shuffle, and I'm doing what I like to do instead of what I'm supposed to do. And what I always like to do is not always what I'm supposed to do, you know?
Yep.
Maybe I should turn the camera off and I should spend a little time with my kids today. Maybe I should, find somebody to pour into, have coffee with them, do a Bible study, share some scripture with them, Or maybe I should be, advocating, the use of my time in another area, but just like having that level of pivot, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
To know what I should be doing on the day that I should be doing, I think has been like super key. But I'm struggling at times. And like, me and you, we had just talked about like, God, is this the best use of my time right now in this season?
Right.
And I think he started to kind of confirm that. But also, I don't want to be stuck in looking at the audience's applause,
right,
as my confirmation either.
Yeah, if you have absolute assurance you're in your assignment, man, like we say these things when we observe the life of Jesus, but it because we do so often confuse, as we heard, I think it was Taylor Welch allude to. We were looking at something earlier from their most recent episode, The Deep End with Taylor Welch. If you haven't already subbed over there, good grief. Not that we necessarily are in the position to help them out, but I'm actually trying to help us. Like, if you're a truth seeker,
it's good,
and you haven't subbed that channel. But so he was saying that something to the effect that in his life he has often confused celebration with comparison.
Yeah, that was good.
That was so stinking profound, man.
The Holy Spirit checked him on it too.
Right. So like you spend a lot of time complaining because when you think you're celebrating, as in celebrating others, celebrating even your own successes, is how I heard it. Actually, what you're doing is comparing, and so I think one of the things that robs that of its power is if you know for sure that you're in your assignment, because Jesus actually, and we talk about it, but it's easier to talk about it when he's doing it. He actively avoided going viral for as long as he could. And we talked about this at the beginning of this podcast, but it's a healthy reminder now when we're like, man, because you and I have this experience of sitting here and being overwhelmed by the grace that fills a lot of these conversations, and we leave being like, man, God showed up. Like, we heard from God.
Yeah.
And then it's hard because then there's a tendency to watch the video when it goes live and think, right, do I just need to go get some pills? Or like, because I could have sworn God said something, and you think, man, like you're not really thinking through, for one thing, all of the factors that go into whether or not a video gets out there. But more to the point, I think, is it's hard not to go to comparison as your metric for whether a thing is doing what it was supposed to do or not. And when we really know that if you're actually saying real truth, like truth that will set the captives free,
Yeah.
which I'm not saying that to glorify us. What I'm saying is, if by the grace of God we say something that could actually help somebody emancipate themselves from mental slavery, and I
Yeah.
think sometimes those things get said here. The Spirit of God has moved on some of these conversations, and if the right person heard it at the right time, it could
Chainsaw.
unlock a key.
Yeah.
It could turn a key in the prison bars. But bottom line is, if that is really what is being said here, then that post or that video getting out there too far is going to be a mixed bag. It's going to come. It's going to come with a whole journey that we haven't really had yet. We know that, and Jesus knew that, and so for as long as he could.
Darius Daniels calls that the backside of the blessing.
Come on now. Yeah, there you go.
I love the way that he puts that, is that the way he's kind of described it is that, number one, God is a good father, number one. And he's not going to intentionally put you on a path that's going to destroy you.
Yeah.
Things that he knows that you cannot handle.
Right.
Just because you are ready, or you think you're ready for them now. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not giving my 2-year-old daughter the keys to my car.
Right.
I love her. Everything that I own is going to be hers at one point, right? She's my heir. However, she is not capable or ready to drive my vehicle.
Yeah.
It's hers.
Yep.
If the Lord should tarry, right?
Yep.
But I'm not going to put those car keys inside her hand.
Yep.
Because she has not matured to that age. She hasn't gone through the necessary checks, balances, or testing.
Yep.
To qualify to operate that level of a blessing inside her life. And so if we know that in the natural, how much more does that apply spiritually to us? And I'm kind of learning with myself. I've even prayed a prayer. This is a dangerous prayer. Lord, make me as wealthy and famous as my purpose allows.
Yeah.
Let that sizzle in your spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
Lord, make me only as wealthy and famous as my purpose allows.
Yeah.
And my flesh did not want to pray that prayer at first. When I kind of like ran across it, I think it was Dale Mast, who may have put it in one of his books. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to co-opt that. I'm going to add that to my daily prayers. And I remember praying it the first time, and my flesh was like, hold on now, wait a minute. You know, you want God to take you some places. And if you to be taken some places, that's going to, take a level of, fame and whatnot. It's okay to have that. And you're a good steward of money and everything. And I was like, ooh.
Yep.
I should be doubling down on this prayer right here because I don't like that level of tension that happened with my flesh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because what is that in you that kind of hopes the cap isn't on your purpose? Whatever that is, whatever the thing is that goes, well, I mean, I could do my purpose plus have whatever that is.
Yep.
Is the thing your father is watching to make sure that's in submission.
You know what's crazy too, what I've often seen is a lot of times, and Moses is probably one of the best examples of this. Our Father will wait and delay some things divinely, almost to the point where you don't even want it anymore. And now it's time to move you into position. It's like, I don't want this anymore. Like, I'm good. I'm too old. I'm too tired. I don't have enough in my tank. He's like, I got everything that you need.
Yep. Almost everything God's ever done for us promotion wise, he told us about it, and then he let us almost fixate on it to the point that it became the dream. Then he made us sacrifice it for obedience, for something else. And then watch this. Let us fall in love with the something else to the point that we not only did the dream kind of fade, but the other thing first turned into like a consolation prize. Like, hey, this isn't that bad. Like, I thought God was going to give us, it happened with the church in Austin and the church in Los Angeles. I thought God was going to give us Los Angeles, but actually Texas is pretty good. And then 7 years at Promised Land, and he's like, now go do LA. And we're like, we already kind of made peace with Austin, and actually now we like it. And then he gives us LA for long enough that we're like, I'm down with what he did, and then it's like it starts hitting the point where it's like, actually, I'm kind of glad God took us on this left turn, and then right when we start falling in love with that, he's like, all right, now Austin, and we're like, who the son of a, and then parks us back in Austin 1 week before he shuts down the world, and LA basically disintegrates, economically and all that for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've seen that where he takes you through that process of, attachment, detachment. Like, he's doing a thing the whole time. He's working on us, teaching us how to make him the main thing, how to submit our will to his will, how to prefer his way. And
ooh, hold on. So you just hit the vein of where I kind of want to go tonight.
Let's get it on.
Let's talk about that will. Kind of discerning God's will and how our will factors in to that equation. Let me start by asking you this question. We've kind of tapped on, like discerning and how to know the voice of God. If you haven't watched that episode yet, go back and watch that. That's going to definitely bless you. But when you were kind of discerning God's will for you and your family, as you kind of like entered ministry, because you could have been doing a lot of things outside of standing behind a pulpit and preaching and pastoring.
And was doing a lot of things.
Right. Making more money, too.
We could both say that.
For the record. For the record, but like submitting some dreams that you have to completely be at the service of God's people.
Yeah.
How'd you navigate that? And keep it underneath an hour, sir.
Very bumpily. What era are you talking about?
That's a great question, because I know you've gone through a couple ebbs and flows.
Look, man.
I would say early on.
Early on, everything started with a bang because about maybe I think 2 years before we got married. We were engaged and all that, and Brooke's parents had, specifically my father-in-law then future father-in-law, had just made a condition of them, giving her the wedding of her dreams. You got to get that college degree first, which I totally get it as a parent. Like, we can have a whole conversation about college degrees and all that, but you got to give your kids some benchmarks to hit and teach them all. And so, one of theirs was get that degree. And I think especially once they met me and they were like, oh, God.
Someone has to be educated in this family.
Someone is going to have to be responsible. And so so Brooke went ahead and did her 4 years at A&M in 3 years. And
oh, you were quite the catch. She said, I'm going to fast forward my studies.
Well, I was a broke king, and she knew we needed to put our finances together. So her uncle, who famously founded and ran a chain of fried chicken joints, of which there's still a couple even right around here, Gill's Fried Chicken, but they wound up expanding into China, and I mean, it was quite an operation. Wow. And when Brooke met me and I was waiting tables at Black Eyed Pea, which is kind of the other end of the food industry, of the service industry from where he was sitting, he called me Cafeteria Boy. And he would always ask her, how's Cafeteria Boy? What's up with Cafeteria Boy?
That is crazy. Cafeteria Boy? What?
It was a gem of a man, but I'm not sure about the first impression I made.
Shules, you could not have waterboarded that nickname out of me. For me to share.
Just cut it in post.
Oh no, that's staying there, boy. That is great.
So,
man.
So she had to get that degree, and somebody had to have their stuff together. And then I'm being real transparent tonight. I had just, like, of course, I was over a decade and a half from even knowing that about the undiagnosed ADHD, right, all that, and the other stack of letter words, and so I didn't know I was a walking barrel of acronyms, and so, man, I was just cycling through jobs like paper towels. I just could not hit, and I did phenomenal in every interview, and I did pretty good at, like, getting going, but then keeping a thing on the tracks was just.
I mean, you're a phenomenal people person, so I mean, you sit down in the room, like, you could have.
We're gonna connect,
yeah.
And I just would kind of connect with. That's what it was. I would connect with the person, and then I'd have the job, and then their expectations of me would be
through the roof.
Oh my Lord!
This is our star student, right?
Yeah. And then here I come with my can't get anywhere on time, and it's amazing. In all that time, I only got let go twice, but it just was. I would just lose interest. I just could not, and I didn't understand myself enough to know what was going on.
Right.
Bottom line is, God wasn't letting me succeed at anything that wasn't connected to my purpose, and ultimately didn't let me find out what the mechanism was behind those struggles until he already had me ensconced in my purpose. So he put me in a position which was hellish, where the only thing that was going to make me function well enough to succeed long-term in something was going to be being in my purpose.
Come on.
And that's how God uses that stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So it's like you're saying that your gift will get you inside, but it won't keep you involved.
No.
Yeah.
No. And I didn't know the mechanisms behind all that. But you got to remember the only thing that keeps people engaged long term with stuff that they don't really have an interest in is either like straight up character and executive function. And I think it's important for people to know those are not always the same thing. I internalized a lot of really negative self-beliefs about my character that actually turned out to be connected to my executive function. The CEO of my brain was retired when I was born. And so I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm just saying the enemy really played havoc with my mind.
Yeah.
I really thought I had some very fundamental character flaws, and so did a lot of voices in my life.
It's like, yeah, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right. And you can internalize that and make that a part of your identity.
Right. And if you've got those character flaws, let's repent. I'm not like, say it was all character flaws. Like there's redemption there too. So I'm not saying that to condemn anybody that does need to overcome some character flaws. But I had some character flaws, but a lot of what was behind what I was struggling with actually turned out to be some neurological processes that were going on that I didn't understand. Bottom line is, it wasn't comfortable, but God used that because people either stay in those kinds of situations because they have that executive function or just that sheer character. But then also I've noticed because of things like fear, because I see where people are so scared of either hardship or, appearing to be a failure or whatever. So they'll stay in a soul crushing situation for however long they've got to keep that paycheck coming in. And I just never had that in me. I kind of honor it when I see it in people. I mean, Brooke's parents are such a great example of people built the opposite of how I'm built. Although, I mean, my mother-in-law is another person that I think has probably dealt with some issues that in some similar ways have probably made her life way more challenging than it would have been if even like science was further along. You know what I mean? Like a lot of this stuff is just people growing up in eras when we didn't know. Right. You know what I mean? Nobody knew.
There's no frame of reference.
You were either a good kid or a bad kid or,
Yep.
But her parents have unbelievably strong character and just that old school grit that, man, like they just drilled through. And my father-in-law worked 30 years, I think, at Kohler in Brownwood, Texas, pouring, not clay, what do you call the porcelain into molds and turning out, commodes.
Yeah.
From 4:30 in the morning, he'd get up and pray and read his Bible for an hour every stinking day.
Yeah.
And then carpool 30 minutes to work and then work, 9 solid hours and then carpool back home, take a quick shower, get changed, go do Bible studies, food pantry. Like they were planting a church this whole time. Yeah. And because they had the wherewithal and the character to keep that up for 3 decades, which just it breaks my brain to think about being able to put up with that factory for 9 hours a day for that long. But because of that, they were able to be the backbone, really, in many ways, of their own church, even economically, and plant a church out of nothing in a town that had no spirit-filled church when they came there, and it's still a thriving church to this day, and so all of that is absolutely remarkable. So I see people that can do that because of like a level of character and grit that I just admire tremendously. But then I see people who do it because they are so stinking scared of breaking out of that mold at all, and they're just miserable. And see, I watched my in-laws, don't get me wrong, their life has not been easy. That was not the easy way to do it at all.
Yeah.
The opposite. But I did see how the fact that it was underwriting their purpose kept their head in the game. And they were able to do that. I honor it. It blows me away. But I do kind of understand it, because it's like, okay, you saw what it took to be in your purpose, and you did it.
Yeah.
That I can relate to. I'm still impressed at actually pulling it off. But then I do see people stay locked in the same kind of soul-crushing situations, and then they go home at night and play video games for a little while and ignore each other because they're all out of bandwidth and they're miserable anyway, and they, drink too much white wine and whatever they do to get by, and they're miserable and they hate each other and they hate their jobs and they hate their life, but they don't bust out of it at all because of just sheer terror of the unknown on the other side of like deciding that I don't want to basically be in an internment camp my whole life at work. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I just couldn't do that. And I see now that was the grace of God. I couldn't put up with it. And oddly, neither could Brooke, even though she has all the executive function that I don't have. She has all the...
Right.
But she just didn't care enough about stuff to be willing to put up with, like, she was doing it, but she was going to burn out. Like, it was evident to her. It was evident to, me. So we were both in this position that, like, we'd go to these jobs and it was just like, really? You kidding me? 50 years, 60 years? Man. And so in the middle of all that, my in-laws, at that time, future in-laws, they also put a condition on me for the same outcome. They had a little bit of leverage there, rightly so. And so I had to keep a job for a year because I would just leave them. I'd just be like, thank y'all. I got some other opportunities I can talk my way into. I was absolutely that guy. I came leaving. Because once the pop is over, once the mental stimulation of learning the thing and all, it just, after that, it was just a drag. And so I was just, and I didn't understand what was happening, but for one reason or another, every job, it just was like, man, this wasn't it. And then on to the, And so then I had to hold down a job for a year. Well, in the process of holding down a job for a year, which I could do because on the other side of that was a bride. So see, it's always been, you just got to give me a good enough why.
Come on, Jacob and Rachel.
Right. Exactly. So on the other side, thank God, we didn't play that whole thing out. Good Lord. I love my sister-in-laws, but that would have been awkward for all of us.
Oh, my.
That you can cut.
Yeah, right.
They're just as thankful as I am and more.
Oh, right.
So that process meant that because I did stay hooked into my job, which happened to be at Sprint, right as they were merging with Nextel, God help us, that little stint of a solid year at a company meant I kind of shot up. Like
Call center?
No. Working the floor in a mobile phone.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it was just a cell phone store, corporate, and I was working the floor, and I got in part-time. I kind of talked my way in on the back of like a part-time sales opportunity, and then by the end of the year, I was, low-level management, working my way up, and there was a couple stores that I was about to apply for the ASM position and all that, And so I was kind of like making my mark, doing my thing.
Assistant to the
Because I
regional
stayed
manager.
there, right. Assistant to the regional manager. And right at that time, as we got married, that's where I was at. So I had finally like made it past that moment where I always tapped out.
Kind of flamed out, yeah.
Yeah. And was actually starting to see enough opportunity coming right up that, again, I was kind of back in that like motivated mode because, you know, now again, I've got a prize to go for even at work. Like I can see and the opportunity. And so right as I'm beginning to like settle into, okay, you know, maybe there's enough opportunity here. I could see regional manager in the future. I could see buying a franchise store. Like I saw all kinds of ways that, hey, yeah, I can make my peace with this.
Yeah.
There's money here. And right as that hit was right when God was actually wrecking me about you going to be in ministry, which was like had been a hard no for me. Grew up in a ministry home.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't know what I was going to do, but it
wasn't that.
Wasn't that. Even though when I was little, that was what I felt pulled to. Yeah. But I know. And so then God wrecked me with that and had a profound experience of being called into the ministry and gave me took me on a vision quest and all that. And so like, okay, so we crossed that. I submitted to that. You hear this recurring theme is always there's a dream, the dream dies, there's a new dream, then he goes back and revives the old dream, and I have to let go of the new dream. And so right as all that hit and we got married, so a couple of comments Brooke had made, I'll do anything with you, I'll go anywhere with you, just don't move me out of the state of Texas. This is my state. And so that was one. And then the next little hit there was we went to Los Angeles in January of 2007 because, and this is January 2007? No, January of 2008 because we got married September of 2007, January of 2008. So we're a couple months into marriage. I was learning how to use MySpace and early YouTube stuff in sales because that was like something we were playing around with at Sprint. And so I was seeing some trends about what was coming down the pike in terms of social media. And there was a little startup company in LA that was doing some early business-to-business networking stuff and early crowdfunding stuff. And they wanted to hear that insight. My brother was working for them, and they wanted to hear that insight that I was getting about social media and the impact it was going to have. And I will say this, bro. One thing I've always been proud of is I can stand by everything I said in that meeting. So I got to go to this board meeting of this brand new startup company and present. And when they introduced us, Brooke and I flew out there together. When we're coming, before the introduction, when we're coming down out of the clouds over L.A., and L.A. emerges from the cloud cover, you've flown in there, LAX?
Yeah, I've been to LAX.
When you fly into LAX, don't judge LA by what you see right below you as you're coming into LAX, right? She just sees miles and miles of like stucco prison and just
it's bleak.
It was bleak. It really was. I love Los Angeles, but that wasn't the way to be introduced to it.
Right.
And so as we look out the window and see that appearing, she turns to me and says, well, I might be willing to move out of Texas with you, but I will never come to this city. And
never say never.
Right. And so we land, and then we go present. And when they introduced us to the board that was sitting around that table, they got to one guy and they said, this is Pastor Bobby Smith. He's a prophet. He's on this board. He serves as our spiritual advisor. Went on. I started presenting, a little later in the meeting. I was giving them my take on where social media was headed and how big of an impact it was going to have and why we should be.
Were you right?
That's what I'm saying. I can stand by everything I said in that meeting. Yeah, that's one thing. I am proud of that. Yeah, we did some really interesting stuff in that company, as it turned out.
I see in the spirit of Twitter.
Right. No, X that. X.
The X, right?
See a big X across that. And so.
At least you did come up with Truth Social.
We're.
I'm sorry, go ahead. My bad.
You need to go sit in the corner.
I know. I would
you've done. You sucker. And so I'm in the middle of my presentation, and Pastor Bobby says, "Excuse me. I don't know him. I've heard of him, but I don't know him." And he says to the CEO, who's now one of my close friends for many years, Enrique Vera, he says, "Brother Enrique, I know this is a little out of the usual, but I have a word from God whenever you say it's okay." And so the CEO said, "Well, we can hold the presentation if you got a word from God. Let's have it." So then, unceremoniously, without any introduction, without any, Pastor Bobby points across the table at me, who he's just met. Says, my preacher, says the Lord," which I had not been telling anybody that I had gotten a call to ministry. I was making peace with it, but I wasn't at that point. He said, my preacher, you are in direct disobedience to me, says the Lord. I already told you to quit your job and go into ministry, and you haven't done it. Well, the thing about that was he was right.
Laser accurate.
Boom. And it just couldn't have been more of a direct hit. Because when
was Brooke in the room?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
What was her direct? Do you remember her reaction?
Brooke is awkward on a good day in a room like that. You know what I mean? She just kind of had her head down, if I remember right. But she knew, right. She knew.
It was the voice of God.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was weird. It was like, yeah, okay. But no, it was real. When we first got married, probably within the first month, the Lord had spoken to us. You're going to have to quit these corporate jobs and go into full-time ministry. And my response to the Lord had been, so remember, this is the answer to your question. My response to the Lord had been, Lord, you make the way, I'll do it. By which I meant, hook me up with the finances and I'll make the move. Because everybody knows, you want to start deriving your living from preaching and teaching and, bro, that's a long road. So my deal was essentially, just to cut to the chase, get me some bookings, I'll quit my job. That was
Sounds reasonable.
I took to be obedience.
Right.
And now here's the Lord 2 months later saying, you're in direct disobedience. I already told you, quit your job, go into ministry. So bro, there was a strong witness of the Spirit. There were we stopped, prayed for a while. I acknowledged you're right, 100% you're right. So we finished the presentation, meeting went well, everything was good. We flew back to Texas, I think that day, or maybe the next day. We flew back to Texas. Monday, or whatever the next work day was, I'm going to go into work, and so I tell Brooke, hey, so what do you think? Like, if God says quit your job, like, how do you think obedience works there? Like, do I like start trying to get things in position? Do I give them some kind of notice?
Right.
What is
What's
obedience?
the protocol here?
Right. And she said, it seems to me like quit your job means quit your job. And so here I go, because you have to realize, and I would not normally recommend quitting without notice, because
Right.
there's just some things that are not basically good practice overall. And for one thing, you're just burning a bridge.
Right.
I'm not hireable at Sprint. You know what I mean? Like, but you got to know when it's time to push your chips across the table. You just do. But here's what's crazy. You think about it. We got married in September. We're in January now. And remember, this is the first job in a long time that I've held down. I had jobs that I held down for longer when I was like a teenager. I was working in construction companies and things like that, but they were different kind of job. It was different every day.
Yeah.
There was like
It stimulated your mind
it
differently.
stimulated my mind. I was working with my friends. There was some pharmaceutical experimentation going on. It was just a whole different thing. I'm talking about like grown up world. So this is kind of the first one that I've like really done the thing. I've had it for a year. I'm working my way up. My brand new in-laws are duly impressed. You know, they're happy. We're happy. And man, that money was coming in right. Well, our first, year of combined finances, we were having a 6-figure year. This is back in 2007. It was a good year. Yeah. Everything was rocking right. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. And we were very comfortable living in a nice luxury apartment, and everything was rocking along well. And now I'm on my way into work with a letter that I've typed up on lunch, because I came home on lunch and asked Brooke that question. And I'm headed back to work now with a letter that says, like, I'm after work today, after this shift, I'm out of here. And so I turn it in. I'm driving home from work, and I get a call from the company in LA where we presented, and they said, hey, check your email. We want to make sure you got an email we just sent you. This is on my way home from burning the bridge at Sprint.
Wow.
And here I am. I'm like, man, I'm barely 2.5 months or something into this marriage, or 3 months into this marriage. I'm already quitting my job. Like, this is not the vibe.
Right.
But there was this, like, I think God said jump, so I should probably jump. And so driving home and get that call, pull up the email, and they said, we heard what the Lord said in that meeting, and we appreciated the presentation, and we'd just like to let you know that we would be glad to make an offer for you to work remotely for us. You could telecommute, and that way you could do it from wherever you're going to be, pursuing ministry. We don't want to impede that. You would always have the freedom to prioritize ministry engagements over work. We believe you can do this and not impede that. And this would be the salary we'd be able to offer. And it was better than what I was doing at Sprint.
Wow.
Bonuses and all.
Wow.
And that was, but again, they didn't know that I went home and quit. They were just doing what God told them to do.
Yeah.
Because they were believers too, obviously. But I knew God didn't let me get that email until after we decided what obedience looked like and did it.
Until we decided what obedience looked like. That's a bar.
I mean, you have to be honest with you. I think that was my takeaway from that.
Yeah.
The answer to that won't always look exactly the same, but it is going to make you uncomfortable. The answer is going to make you uncomfortable, whatever it is. But when God says something, you have to have an honest conversation with yourself about what obedience actually looks like. It's like the king in the Bible where the prophet said, shoot these arrows. Now go get them and strike the ground with them. And he struck it 3 times and quit. And the prophet was furious. Well, there's a whole conversation we can have there. But bottom line is the prophet knew if this person was in the spirit of obedience.
Come on.
They would have wailed on that ground. So he said, now because you only struck the ground 3 times, you'll only strike your enemies 3 times. If you would have struck 6 or 7 times, you would have destroyed them without. Because it was a barometer of the posture. God said jump. And there's a difference between how high and how high do you think I have to jump? Like there's a difference. You know what I mean?
Come on. Yes.
Okay, God, how high is jump? Or how high do you think I have to jump to, technically? So in this case, God said quitting means quit. So I quit. Boom. Here's the ram in the thicket. So that's kind of the answer. That I would say the long and short of it is every lesson we've learned since that day is a reiteration of a development out of, a development upon, a deepening of our understanding of, an exercise of doing the same thing but on a new scale. But everything that has followed the format of what I just told you. Everything. Including what we're dealing with right now with the church and the purchase of the property. And the way God has always dealt with us has always been in the format I just described.
It's so interesting how these things play out in cycles. 100%. How it's so cyclical. How these seasons come of obedience and sacrifice and us pushing past delayed obedience, which is disobedience at the end of the day. You said something earlier I wanted to actually circle back around to, is that
I did it in under an hour.
Oh yeah. Yes, you did. You had to repent.
Yeah, that's also been a theme.
And we kind of touched on this today. Why that's such a loaded word. Mm-hmm. Why it has this connotation to it, this stigma of repentance. It's like attached to some sort of like besetting sin, something that we should be, fighting shame or condemnation or whatever we want to attach to it, right? But that's not all that repentance consists of.
No.
And I think if we follow the mindset of like, oh, I only need to repent if I'm in like sin, then I think we're still falling short of what we should be actively engaging in, completing, or like how you say, like, smack dab in the big middle of it. Like, I want to be in the big middle of my assignment, in the big middle of like the purpose that I'm supposed to be doing, whatever that consists of. Like, I want to, if I'm going to be tired, I want to be tired because I'm doing the Lord's work for my life.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
That's just where I'm at with things. And I have found, man, some of the gifts that he's provided me with, like when you were talking about, easily kind of getting hired, like that level of charisma, being able to be activated in those type of meetings is not foreign to me. I was able to kind of do that throughout all the different jobs that I had. Now, I was a little bit opposite of you. I really only had 2 or 3 jobs.
Okay, so you've always been Mr. Responsibility.
I wouldn't even call it that. There was a level of responsibility.
Have you treated every job like you treat your work at the church?
Yes, but I think there was a
well,
level
they're
of
all
like,
mad you're gone.
There was a level of like playing it safe too. Almost too safe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like I found myself. I never forget. I worked in call centers for quite a bit.
That's cool to know in light of what I know about the journey you've been on.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. So I worked as a substitute teacher at first. I did that for almost 10 years.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not. And then I was working in a call center, or a couple different call centers, worked my way up through that. But as I was at the call center, I found myself, I was like in a training role almost. And so I would, I was a manager, I was a leader of like all the new trainees. So they would go through training X amount of weeks, and then they would come out to the floor. And so they have what we call a nesting period. So it's like that first week they're like taking turns, taking the phone calls, and they're switching out with like a Y cord so that there's somebody behind them listening in and kind of coaching them through it. So that's the first week. And then the second week, they're kind of doing it on their own, and we debrief at the end, with the beginning of the day and at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so my team leads and people who I'm kind of working with, like they're monitoring them and supervising them and kind of like reporting like what they're finding throughout the day, right? And so it was up to me to kind of help debrief, like, hey, this is what we saw today. We got a lot of questions on this. This is where we find this information. Let's try to mitigate this issue going forward, right?
Yeah.
Now, I found myself at a point in my job where I had maybe 100 some agents on the floor at any given time, which was like unprecedented. It was a lot, right? And so imagine this entire call center floor filled with people. And it's end of the day, end of the shift, and I'm debriefing. So I'm debriefing these
We've
people.
had a little cold here this week.
Yeah. I'm debriefing these people. And so I'm having to like raise my voice because I'm talking across this whole entire floor, right? And I'm like getting inside the groove of things I'm saying. Okay, so everybody repeat after me. Let's make sure we're doing this. Okay, we got you locked in. You're buying with here. We got to make sure we're following this instructions. Hey, great job this side of the floor. So I'm just like going off. I'm walking around, working the room. You can hear a pin drop in there. Captivated their attention. Do you know how many people came up to me at the end of that debrief and were like, yo, what do you do, like, outside of work? And I was like, work. And he was like, I don't know what this sound weird, but it felt like you was up there preaching.
You're kidding.
I'm not. More than one person came to me was like, you sound like a preacher when you're, like, talking. Like, I kind of like it, but... And I was like...
It's a little weird in this environment.
You know what I mean? And so it was almost like the Lord was using, like, a gift that was naturally happening in that environment. And I mean, I was able to make like contact with people. Like there's people that I met in that job that, I'm still inside their lives. I was able to like introduce them to my wife.
Man.
We have like relationships still. My wife has like walked with them through some really, really dark seasons of their life based upon our interactions at this old job, whatever.
Wow.
But like that experience kind of taught me, like, man, like purpose is not necessarily, I don't even know how to put this. Purpose is like usually not just discovered, it's like rediscovered. Like
Say that again?
We look at purpose as like something that has to be like found. Like it's like
Yeah.
a buried treasure. But I'm finding that purpose is more like your favorite song that you're just discovering again.
Bro,
Like, does that make sense?
Oh, that could get so deep so fast. Yeah, it does.
So it's like we're walking through life and we're like, gotta find my purpose, gotta find my purpose, gotta find it, gotta find it, gotta find it. And you're turning over every rock and digging every hole super deep, going into every hidden cave, trying to find the purpose. But it's like, it's your favorite song that you didn't even know was your favorite song.
You really trying to set me off.
But I'm just saying, like,
That's good.
that's just what I found it to be. And it's like, I had the same similar situation where I was like, I grew up in a ministry home. It's like, I'm not pastoring, I'm not preaching. That's not going to be me. Even though as a toddler, there's videos of me preaching.
Come on.
But I reached a point after when I, reached a teenager, I was like, no, I'm definitely not doing that.
Yeah, PKs, man. You're like, I'm good.
I'm good on that. I have no desire for it at all. And the Lord arrested my heart sitting in the back of the First United Pentecostal Church in Killeen, Texas. And I'm sitting on a Sunday morning service in the back of the church. I had just finished playing drums. I used to go to the back to get some water or whatever while the preacher was happening, and I would come out and I would sit on the back, and I had like this one chair. It was a metal folding chair. And they had the rest of them were like, the pews and stuff, but I'm sitting on this metal folding chair in the back, and I'm just minding my business and sitting there listening to the word, half listening at that. And the Lord arrested my heart, and I felt the Holy Spirit speak to me and say, that's what I've called you to do. Stop running from me.
Wow.
And for the first time, I said yes.
Wow.
Like, I have it so locked inside my mind at that moment. And I was just like, okay.
Wow.
Okay, God, but when? And it was like, he didn't give me any other
Man, if
instructions,
you knew.
no timeline, nothing. And some years went by.
Yeah, because he would have had to say, actually, it's going to be a really prolonged, painful process. And by the time you get there, you're
not even going to want it anymore. Like, but I reached a point where, like, my heart started, like, wanting this thing. And, I'm working with my dad. And, like, I'm coming into, like, ministry. I go on that first missionary trip with him to Myanmar. I get the taste of, like, missionary work, fall in love with evangelism like that. And they asked me to preach up there. And so, like, I'm just giving whatever God has given me. I'm getting my first taste of ministry, falling in love with it. And we come back from Myanmar. And my father's the pastor. And a month or 2 months later, his brain pretty much just breaks. Worst probably just nervous breakdown I've ever seen anybody kind of go through. And he just kind of deteriorates over the next 5 to 6 years. And like the call to preach is so strong on my life still, but the opportunity just wasn't there. Because there was a whole power struggle with the church that he pastored.
Yeah.
And people are in my ear saying, hey, you have the gift. I know the Lord's put his hands upon you. Take the church.
Take the church.
Take it. get up there, because I had preached a couple times before, and I had the heart of the people, I guess you could say. But I said no. I said, I'm not going to get up here and force my way through. Throw your hat in the ring. Never forget I love my wife. There was a board meeting, a chaotic board meeting at that. And
I would expect no less in that situation.
people are writing their names down of who they want to take to church. And I'm just there, just because I'm being obedient as far as being a part of the board meeting. And Aslan, she writes my name down and drops it in the hat.
Aslan just adding to the chaos.
And I have no idea that she's done that, right? And so they're reading off the names of people who have submitted their name for consideration. So they're reading off the first name, so-and-so. 18 votes. So-and-so.
The little match girl.
25 votes.
Good Lord.
Jonathan, 1 vote. So I'm sitting there I didn't put my name in the hat, just so y'all know. And that's just I did. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So part of me is thank you for believing in me, but no. This is not the situation that I would have. And Lord, in his faithfulness and goodness, really shielded me and protected me.
Yeah.
That was such a toxic situation in so many ways. I think it would have really, I would have been put on a platform way too early.
Yeah.
My character wasn't refined nearly enough.
There's nothing worse that can happen to you.
Oh, my goodness, man. My marriage was getting ready to go through the worst years. And there was no way that I could have possibly been involved in that level of ministry with the spotlight on you, platformed with where my heart was at, Then fast forward, to visit Promised Land, to visit Joseph. I'm sitting over in the wings, tucked away.
On the backside of all the marital hell you're talking about.
Yeah, right. On the back, this is 2021?
Yeah.
Yeah, 21 I think it was. So COVID is still very much full-blown. I'm in a mask, at church. Yep. People are all social distancing, all that good stuff. I'll never forget. you were leading prayer, or about to go into a ministry moment prayer.
Yep.
And I don't know, did someone tell you that I was there, or you just looked over and saw me?
I think Brooke told me Joseph's brother is here. And it was immediately that the Holy Ghost spoke to me. So, yeah.
You look over at me and say, Pastor Brewster.
Yep.
And I'm looking around the only Pastor Brewster I know is my late father.
Yep.
He's not here. So, who are you talking to? And Joseph's kind of looking at me you ain't talking to me.
Yep.
And you asked me to come pray.
Yeah, as soon as I think it was Brooke told me you were there, which we had interacted once or twice on social media.
On social media, yeah.
I admired your erudition. You're a very well-read person. And you obviously had good things to say on social media. I don't even know if I knew at that time that you were a killer with a beat. I don't even know if I knew you were a rapper.
Oh, probably not. Yeah, I hadn't really released any music.
Yeah.
For a while, yeah. At that
so
time.
So whatever. I didn't know much. I knew Brewsters to be profoundly faithful people, and obviously your parents and your brother had set that reputation in stone. But yeah, I didn't know you. But as soon as they told me you were there, God said, have him pray and call him pastor and see what happens.
That's so crazy to me.
Which was crazy to me too, because you don't just go throwing your endorsement behind randoms.
Yeah.
Like that's a big deal.
You don't just come to somebody's church. Like, this is my maybe second time ever going to Promised Land, because we didn't live there, right? And this is my first time being in the chapel. I think the first time I had come, or a couple of times I had come, was in the bigger.
Yeah, because we had moved by then. Yeah.
And so I'm coming to the chapel for the first time. I'm trying to be as low profile, incognito as possible, because I'm dealing with a significant amount of church hurt. Like, there was like some pain that I've dealt with, not to mention the level of rejection.
Right.
Because the entire time, the part of the story I didn't tell was that, mind you, my father, he was the pastor of this church.
Yep.
I feel like I'm being groomed to potentially have some sort of leadership in the church. I'm not saying I'm the next pastor or whatnot, but I know that the call of preaching was on my life, and my father is definitely trying to train me, right? And so when he falls sick, all of that goes out the window.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck cycling and feeling all of the rejection, because I'm saying, okay, Pop, you're not able to preach, or you're not able to do whatever, but you can endorse me.
Yeah.
Like, your voice holds weight. You can tell the board or whoever, like, have Jonathan take the service.
Right.
Never once. In almost 7 years, there was never one. Now, I'm not bitter right now saying this. Just in case
no, but this is an important discussion.
But in almost 7 years, not one time did the person closest to me, who recognized who I was, hear me now, ever say, I want you to take this Sunday and preach. Not one Sunday, not one Wednesday. And so I am navigating. Why does it my dad want? Like, he's heard me, he's endorsed it, like, in other times in private.
Yeah, he's told you he sees it.
Yeah. But it was such a kindness, and I fully believe, like, now I'm so far removed from it, I can see it as, like, that was a kindness. Like, he saw, like, I'm not going to put my son.
Your father on earth saw the same thing your father in heaven was looking at.
Yes. And even though his mind was snapping in some ways, he was connected enough to his father.
Yeah.
To hear the voice of God to be like, cover him, protect Jonathan from himself right now. And so, like, I'm coming into that service with that type of bondage and baggage that I'm kind of carrying. So I hear you call me pastor. I'm not ordained. I don't hold no title. Like, what is this? Like, are you playing with me, God? But there was no time to, like, vacillate in that moment, because it's like, you're calling me to the front at this point. Are you going to be obedient? Are you going to fumble this moment? It was all kind of up in the air at that point.
And then you walked up and you prayed like it was the benediction at, General Conference. I mean, you prayed. And I knew several things right away. One is instant in season and out, for sure. Johnny on the spot. Anybody who was there when you prayed knew the oil was there and the gift was there. The humility was there. You did exactly what you were asked to do, not an ounce more, not an ounce less, but you did it all the way. And, and if I could just make a comment about that, one thing that somebody who was stuck in an egoic trap could do in that moment is false humility. I've seen so many people make that mistake. And I know I've made it myself, but I've seen a lot of people make the mistake of centering themselves in a moment where the thing to do is to center God, to center someone else, to center purpose. There's a there's something bigger going on. And I've seen so many people let their insecurity, their hurt, pull them into, you so easily could have got up there and said, well, I don't know about all this pastor stuff. I'm just a little.
Oh my good. Yes, I have heard people do that.
And the outcome would have been, I promise you, it would have been, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize, Bishop Phillips always said, the doors of destiny may be mighty and tall, but they swing on exceedingly small hinges.
That moment was defining.
Defining for both of us.
Yes.
And it started with God telling me to do something that breaks every protocol I know, including just wisdom.
Yeah. That doesn't make sense.
Invite that guy to the front, have him pray, call him pastor, watch what happens. And what happened was you moved. See, now I understand a little more about spiritual protocol, because there was an extension of an office given to you situationally in that moment right there. Yeah. So you already had the gift, you already had the call, you'd been through a lot of the backside of the blessing, the development, you didn't necessarily see it all. It's very hard to when you're in the moment. But now you were suddenly plucked out of that and for just a moment shoved into an office that you didn't hold when you walked in, and that day you didn't hold when you walked out.
Talk about it.
But there was a moment doing one thing where the apostolic gift was able to say, here's an office, come use it for a minute. Step into it. And you did. Profoundly well, with the perfect balance of genuine humility and holy boldness, and you just did what was asked, and you did it from within that office, and you went back to your seat. And I don't think people understand when they are upset about the opportunities that haven't come their way, when they are dealing in the sin of comparison and falling prey to, how come everybody else has gotten their shot and I haven't, and I have so much to say, why don't I have the platform and all of that. I don't think people realize at all that your moment probably came and went, and you didn't even know it was there, and you didn't even know when it was gone. And that doesn't mean another one won't come, but there's the price of admission gets higher every time you miss. Because what it's telling the potter is we got to go back on the wheel. We're not there yet. We got to develop this.
The price of admission gets higher every time.
And if you hadn't just stepped to the plate and did that day, I don't know what would have happened, but I don't see how we would be sitting here now in your house in this town.
Yeah. So much was set in motion from that moment. And I can say from my point of view that your obedience, because I'm going to get to this other part of the story that a lot of people don't know about, but your obedience to bypass every bit of protocol, like you said, and ministry wisdom and experience in that moment. This is your church service.
Yeah.
In the middle of COVID, and you had literally just taken over the pastor. And I didn't know that you had just came back to take over the pastorate. And so things are very delicate, in motion. You're kind of between two worlds, literally between what has been established from our bishop and what you and your wife are trying to establish inside this season right now.
During a pandemic.
Honoring the old, embracing the new, blending them both together. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
and
yeah.
so, that was a very, very vulnerable moment for you to we understand in ministry services like they can be either made or broken in those moments where you're just like, man, like we gotta start all over again to kind of get the atmosphere where it needs to be. You know what I mean?
Well, for the first time in my life, I had people sitting in the room actively plotting my demise. I had never had haters before. Not the real deal. Not like that.
Real haters.
Real haters.
Yeah.
Haters that want something bad to happen to you.
Right. We're not talking about somebody, not liking your Facebook post.
Right. Disagreeing with your...
That's not what we're talking about. Right.
So for the first time in my life, I had liars in wait. So everything felt like it was for all the marbles all the time.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other conversation, how you navigate through that.
But your obedience in that moment unlocked for a moment in me the realization that my father still sees me, even though it's not my natural father that I wanted to hear it from. He still gave voice to something that needed to be unlocked in me. And it was also in that moment was extremely cathartic and healing because it came from a place of like somebody who doesn't even know me as well as you know me now, but speaking into my life something so healing, like 2 words, Pastor Brewster.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage somebody like, man, when the Lord is speaking to you to do something, please obey, please do it, because you have no idea what that will do inside somebody's faith walk and how you can set some things in motion for destiny to be like developed and unwrapped. Like, I don't think that I don't believe that we would be sitting inside these chairs doing this podcast if that moment was fumbled from either side.
This goes back to when Jesus is describing the process for church discipline to the disciples, and in Matthew 18, off-quoted, off-misquoted, off-weaponized, off-misapplied, whatever. But really, he does give us the protocols for conflict resolution within the church and ultimately the proper application of church discipline when and where necessary.
Right.
But really what he does, much more profoundly than that I think people miss the forest for the trees all the time on that, is much more profoundly than telling us how conflict resolution and church discipline look. He tells us what happens when we come together. There's a mystery, like a great mystery in what he's saying. And he always does that. He always hides the mystery under 2 or 3 layers so that carnally minded people and unprepared people who aren't ready, will just miss it. Because a mystery has to be missed until you're ready. And so...
That's a bar, too.
So the mystery that's there is he's explaining to us what the difference is between a believer and 2 believers in perfect alignment.
Yeah.
And so in Matthew 18, it's a good verse number, 18:18. Truly I say to you, how many times have we said it? Whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. Which, by the way, that's the New American Standard. They get that really well, because we often note that many of the translations say shall be bound in heaven, shall be, but this is really good. Whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. Again, I say to you that if 2 of you agree on earth so 2 of you being the operative thing there along with agree. If 2 of you agree on earth in this realm about anything that they may ask, it shall be done for them by my Father who is in heaven. Again, if we're following the line from what he just said above, if you bind it on earth, it shall have been, past tense.
Yeah.
Or I think you could say that the tense is shall have been being bound in heaven. Okay. But now if we follow that logic down here, it looks to me like it's not necessarily saying if two of you agree on earth about anything that you may be asked, that they may ask, it shall be done for them, future tense. But if we're following from what he just said, it looks more like if two of you agree on anything you ask in my name on earth, it's done. Like it's just like the what is bound and what is loosed.
Yes.
And so then, for where, this is why that works that way, for where two or three have gathered together in my name, I am there in their midst. And so the midst of us is this sacred space where Christ is. And that story that you just told, my moment of unquestioning, unflinching, direct obedience coupled with your moment of unquestioning, unflinching, and uncomplicated obedience. Those two things came together in perfect agreement, and the kingdom manifested. All this destiny that we're sitting in right now was right there in that moment, already written in heaven.
Yeah.
But it instantly materialized into this realm in that moment of agreement. And so much of your story and my story both are filled with those moments where you look back and it was such a small moment in the moment and the whole thing was riding on it.
Yes. I mean, we can even look at, and we've told the story before, the name of the podcast.
Right.
In passing after a funeral.
Yeah.
And it was just like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm feeling, boom, boom, boom. Here we are.
And me feeling stupid, not really wanting to throw it out there.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is gold. Like, man.
And here's the thing, bro. Like, the first time I told you that story about quitting the job, what did you do?
Talk about like tonight?
No. The first time I told you that story.
I don't remember.
You went home and quit your job.
You're right. That's funny. I forgot about that, actually.
Now, that's not always the way to, like, sometimes that would be the wrong lesson to take.
You're right. I sure did.
But it wasn't that time.
I sure did.
Why'd you do that?
That's a great question because it felt crazy to me at the time.
It wasn't the sanest thing you ever did.
You know, thankfully I was in agreement with my wife, so it wasn't just a complete, God said it, I believe it. That settles it. That's very
woman.
much true. But yeah, I recognized that it was time for me to really completely give a full yes. Because I'd like, all right, God, if you want me, hold on, let me rewind. Because remember, we said a lot of times that blessing or what you want is delayed to the point where when you kind of get it, you don't even really want it.
Right.
Like the burning desire that I had to like be platformed and pastor, quote unquote, preach, be in front of the microphone, like had dissipated quite a bit. And I was okay. Like I'm good.
And you were an artist and you were developing online influence. Like you were finding outlets for your gift.
Yeah, so it was just like, okay, God, if it's not behind the pulpit, okay, that's fine. You know, that's cool. And here you go. Like, it's Pastor Brewster. I was like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
we've been down this road before, God. It's not happening, right? But as I started walking in covenant and started recognizing, like, man, my assignment's kind of attached to this house. Actually, no. My assignment is attached to this particular relationship.
Yeah.
Like, hold on, let's tap on that a little bit. Let's explore that. Is this just we cool?
Right.
We vibe. We're, like into the same things. Our kids are similar ages. Like, is that all this is? Or is this like, no, this is like covenant. Like, I'm tied to your vision, and God is going to orchestrate some things to put in alignment what needs to go forth through us. And it's like, okay, I have what you need. Got some equipment, lights, camera, action, right? And you have what I need in so many different ways with the research behind it, the creativity behind it, and the affirmation behind it, and the confidence to push past the level of lethargy and even procrastination, which we both struggle with sometimes, right? But we were able to kind of motivate that. We're talking about like living in purpose, right? Talking about like kingdom connections, talking about covenant. And so when I'm seeing this all come into place, and I'm hearing your story as far as like, this is what you did, it resonated with me. And this wasn't just the same of like, well, he did it, so I'm going to do it.
Right.
It was more like, wake up, I'm giving you a level of insight and allowing you to see somebody who has walked a similar path, and you get the beautiful opportunity to see that they jumped and didn't break both their legs.
You have said about 4 things in the last 3 minutes that are so profound that they've almost left me dumbfounded. But let's rewind to the first one, which was, it was right when you were realizing your assignment. First you said is attached to this house, and then you corrected yourself and said, my assignment is attached to this relationship. Yeah. Just full stop for just a moment. It is profoundly important. And I'll say this from the perspective of starters or people in the lead role in an organization, a church, a company, whatever. You have to know the difference between people who, we all know that there are some people who serve the organization because the organization serves something for them, whether that's a paycheck and they're good at what they do, and they come to work on time, and they have a good attitude and whatever. Like they're good for the organization's good for them.
Right.
And then there are people who, especially in kingdom, whether it's kingdom business, kingdom ministry, whatever. Oh, that they have an assignment that's connected to this ministry, this house, as we say, right? Yeah. And this house can even include like the office of the pastor, like they're assigned somewhere in that. But you have to know the difference, just like you have to know the difference between people who serve a purpose because there's a mutual benefit there. And I'm not even saying that necessarily in a transactional way. It's just it's a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm looking for a word that means it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whatever.
We'll think of it.
Yeah. When it doesn't matter anymore. Anyway, there's an environment there that everybody's fitting into. But then there are people who have an assignment connected to the house. But what I'm saying, you pointed out, is a step beyond that. Leaders need to be aware of the difference between someone who has an assignment to the house and an assignment to this relationship.
Come on.
Because God puts some people in your life. And man, I feel the wind on this, as they say. God puts some people in your life who are assigned to you and you are assigned to them. Can I tell you something that I didn't know about that when I first found it out? Because when I first found it out, I was like, everybody that and it's not many. There's only going to be a few. For Jesus, there was like a dozen that, a little more than that. There was Mary and Martha, and so there's a little more than a dozen. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There was a small number of people that were lifers during his earthly pilgrimage, right?
Yes, sir.
But one thing that I didn't know about that when I discovered the concept of lifers, like somebody that God puts in your life, some of them are the ops.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're still your assignment.
I did a teaching one time, and it was identifying like relationships and like basically having like relationship intelligence, right?
Yeah.
And I love Darius Daniels because he's talked extensively about it. And I kind of co-opted from some of his verbiage, but I made it into my own a little bit because, I love alliteration, so I had to make them all the same thing. But saying that there are 4 types of relationships. And you have problems, a.k.a. assignments. You have partners. You have promoters. And the last one is what you're talking about. They're parasites.
Good Lord. Wow.
And if you think about parasites, they're biological organisms that live and are sustained at the expense of the host.
Yeah. And they are a manifestation of the demonic realm. They're a physical manifestation of the demonic realm.
Yes, sir.
They're spirits that attach that are not viable outside of. So a parasite attaches itself to the organism. It's not viable outside of the organism, and it does not serve a function within the organism. It just siphons at best.
I found that those people, they will often never leave on their own. You have to eventually remove them.
I agree with that. I'm making the case that there's a step beyond that, and I don't know what P word to put on it, but I'm making the case that occasionally God will give you somebody. Jesus said, of the ones that you gave me, John 17, I have lost none.
Lost none.
Except Judas, and you knew that he was a devil when you gave him to me. Paul said, by reason of the excellence of the revelations given to me, so that I might not become lifted up, I was given a messenger of Satan, angelos. I was given by God a messenger of Satan to torment me, to buffet me. 3 times I begged to be delivered, and God said, my grace is sufficient for you. So I mean, that what you stated there is so profound.
I mean, that actually may fall underneath the problems.
I think it might.
Yes. I think, and also using discernment to figure out who are parasites.
Yeah.
People who are just leeching off of you.
That just have to go. Like
you have to remove those.
There's one thing I have against you, that you tolerate that woman Jezebel. Parasites.
Parasites. But then you have the problems. And
some of those are assigned.
Yep. They're assignments.
That doesn't mean that you don't move with wisdom. That doesn't mean you don't draw the boundaries you need to draw.
I actually have here written, it said that these problems, they should never be confused as parasites because these are ministry connections.
There you go.
There is a divine difference, and we render service to them as unto God. They may not reciprocate and may think they love you, but it may be only your gift they love.
There you go.
And that's okay. We should never date or marry problems, assignments.
So a lot of those are going to fit within the realm of people who are in the organization because the organization serves them. But occasionally, I believe, he puts one of those in your lifetime assignment. There are people who have personally betrayed us, who have behaved terribly.
Yeah.
Who I still pray for in my daily prayer in a unique way, in the kind of way that I cover my family, my loved ones, my inner circle.
Right.
Because I don't feel released from them.
Yeah.
It's not that I feel attached to them. In fact, God has had me do things to make sure that I'm not. But I still feel assigned.
Yes.
I'm still a watchman. I still need to cover. It's just something I don't know, but and if nothing else, it helps keep my spirit in check, right?
Yeah.
So I do think leaders need to be aware. Not everybody who's assigned to the house is necessarily assigned to this relationship, except as a function of being assigned to the house.
Yes, sir.
But then there are a few who are assigned to the relationship, and those relationships are valuable in a way you cannot make the mistake of not recognizing those relationships and treating them as what they are. And when you get them, they're not your destiny helpers. They are destiny.
Whew. That's good.
And so, like, when you and I came together, the way I envision it is almost like, and this sounds silly because, we're not leading the world's fastest growing church or something like that we know of right now. You know what I mean? But the way I see it in the spirit realm, because things are not always the same in the realm of the spirit as they are in the realm of the natural. So some of your franchise players in the realm of heaven and in the spirit realm don't have the footprint you would expect them to. And I'm not saying that by way of excuse, but I'm just saying you can't always tell who's who in the realm of the spirit and in the realm of the natural if you look at earthly metrics, right?
Yeah, that.
So the way I envision that moment where our destinies collided, in that moment of mutual obedience and unity, and there's been a number of them since, it's like a supernova. It's like a atomic fusion. It sets something off that alters the trajectory of our worlds and whatever of his world we are called to impact. Mm-hmm. So if I come into alignment with anybody within the body, the kingdom is there. Christ is in our midst. It's powerful. But then if I do that with somebody that's in this relational assignment sphere, and there's not many of them, when that happens, there's a level of the universe responds, the kingdom responds, the spirit realm responds, heaven responds. It's a whole different category. Yes, and we ought not to resent others, even in our inner circle, who may not have that same assignment, or it may not have become apparent yet, or whatever. You couldn't handle many of them because of what that relationship involves on both ends. A good example is you don't live in your dream house in Killeen anymore. You pulled up stakes. You moved to a different place that you hadn't dreamed of being in, and that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the whole trajectory of your world is totally different, and it's impacted your mamas, and there's all this fallout from it. And yet, so how many people in your life could you do that with? Like,
and this is how you know its purpose, because, man, I'm experiencing this like real time as like a lot of these pieces are falling into place. That level of ambition, I don't think ever like dissipates, right?
Right.
If the Lord's putting a level of ambition and a goal in front of you and like a desire, dream, whatever adjective you want to add there, fine. But the ambition that I had to stand behind the pulpit, behind that podium, and preach the word of God as the guy. Like, that was how I framed the ministry call, right? That's not necessarily what the Lord ever promised. You know what I mean? Just because the vessel that I saw in that moment happened to be the guy, that's not what he said. If I am completely honest with that initial call, right? But when I came into this relationship, it was such a fulfillment of like purpose, of like what I'm doing, that there was a level of like satisfaction where I can lay my head down on my pillow every night, tired, from a place of knowing that I ran my race towards the purpose that God called me to follow and pursue for the right reason, with the right people, at the right time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade that for anything. Because it's really interesting, I had a father in the ministry, and I was relatively close with my father. We had a good relationship. But for whatever reason, I was shielded from a lot of the ministry woes in that season. But then I come here, and the curtain is kind of pulled back, where it's like, okay, you see the lights, camera, action, you see the show, and the smoke, and the fog, and it looks great. Now let's show the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And seeing the behind the scenes is like, okay, this is where you have to really come to the conclusion on what your purpose is.
Yeah.
because now you're trying to not force that square peg in the round hole and just do it because this is something that I desire. And I'm understanding more and more is like why destiny kind of collided us together, because I'm able to operate in my giftings in whatever capacity that I'm able to and still have a level of like true fulfillment. Like, I wouldn't say that I lost anything picking up, quitting my job, selling my house, changing cities. And if you would have asked us that 5 years ago, me and my wife would have been like, no, we're definitely not doing anything like that.
I mean, you weren't 20 when you did it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Now that you're understanding a lot of that behind the scenes stuff, I would guess, I can't speak for you, but I would take a stab at it and guess that
A stab at it is a very it's a very good way to describe
and
what
twist
yeah, right.
that it, when you think back to what was going on with your pop's church and all that, you start to see the subtext, even though you can't go back to that moment and relive it, but you now kind of have a pretty good idea of what was probably behind the curtain.
Yes, sir.
On a lot of that stuff you were watching play out, and the kind of human spirits and other influences and all of that was involved, and I probably have more understanding of how your pops wound up dealing with what he did, and so one of my observations as you're speaking is because when I pointed out that when you heard me tell that story the first time you went home and quit your job, my point was not that that's the appropriate response to that. There's a lot of people, I pray, that will see this episode and that will get something. God will give them something of value where they'll go, you know what, there's this area of my life where I've known for a long time that I was supposed to be in this level of obedience. And I realize now I've been waiting on God to like deploy the parachute and I'll jump. Put it that way. Deploy, I've been telling God, deploy the parachute and I'll jump, which he's not going to do because you'll get tangled up in the engines, right? So
that's so good.
He's never going to do that because he'll kill you dead.
It'll kill you.
So he's like, no, I hope you jump. I really want you to jump. It'd be so good if you would jump. But I'm also not going to kill you over it, right? So your father loves you. So I'm praying that somebody will see this and realize, oh, I'm not waiting on God. God's waiting on me. And they'll take whatever step of obedience is appropriate in their life. In yours, it happened to be, oh, God's been telling me my assignment is over here, and I've stayed attached over here. I have to do the same thing I just heard, not because that's the logical reaction to hearing a story about somebody quitting their job to go into the ministry, but because your journey happened to directly mirror the story that I was telling, which is because we are assigned to each other. I've experienced this. I only have a couple relationships in my life that have worked this way, and and all of the other ones, other than what's going on right now in my life, it's always been me being attached to somebody, pouring water on their hands, and the only reason it doesn't look necessarily like that's what's going on right now is because our bishop is with the Lord. But really, that's what I'm still doing. I'm here in Austin in this assignment because I was assigned to him.
Yes, sir.
So
you've walked it.
And I'm walking it out. Like when I get up in the morning and I do what I'm doing at Promised Land Church, filling this office and all of that stuff, it's ultimately because I was assigned to him. And this is where the mantle fell, right? And so bottom line is, I've lived it out enough to know God puts you through all these exact It's like the universe is just totally aligned in your lives because you do have this assignment. And so in your case, that's how it played out, which is why I say you can't have many relationships like that in your life, because you can't upend your life every time you hear a good story. And so I want people to understand as they hear this that there is a level of a huge level of protection over your life, because God positions you so that should you work up the nerve to leap into the unknown following his prompting, and somebody's going to say, well, I don't hear from God very often. It was just that one time. Well, if you haven't done that thing, it's no wonder you haven't heard from him since.
Right.
And so I pray somebody realizes God has been shielding you, because here's the thing, bro. What I hear when you tell that story is how easily your story could have gone the way I've seen 1,000 other people's stories go, where, and I've tasted this. God has protected me from the brunt of it.
Yeah.
But I've tasted this. If you get into a situation where you see your gift, your call, your destiny, and you see opportunity, and you grasp at the opportunity, you have to remember that wherever there is opportunity, it's being observed. There are parties that are aware that that opportunity exists. And so if you grasp that opportunity, there are going to be people who also were either grasping or considering grasping, and suddenly you become the target of their jealousy, their envy, whatever it is, right? And so what happens is, sometimes if the opportunity is good enough, there'll be some bigger players, reasonably experienced, or maybe they've got finances, or they're connected, or whatever. There'll be some key players that are also aware of that opportunity. They see you go for it, and they're immediately going to look at you and analyze your why. And if they're good at what they do, they'll be able to read you like an open book. They'll see the wheels spinning. They'll know what's making you tick. Because we usually have a tell. Usually the way we move when we grasp. That's why grasping is pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Because usually the way we move when we grasp gives entities with insight a fair amount of intel on what our why is. And so we grasp, and then they know our weakness because they know what we're chasing. They know whether it's affirmation or money, prestige, power, whatever. They know. And then they will leverage that pain point to A, either destroy you, or B, and this is probably more common, build undue influence and take you prisoner in your own opportunity. And you'll wind up living your dream and experiencing it as a nightmare. And so that and I hope there are people that hear this that have enough life experience to be able to kind of pick up some of what I'm laying down, because I know I'm speaking in metaphors, but it's just that this can play out at Target if you're grasping for a store manager position, or in a church if you're grasping to be the pastor, or like the Sunday school direct. Like, this can play out anywhere in life. Social media, if you're building a platform. What I'm talking about, I'm being a little vague because put it in the situation you're in. You see your gift, you know your call, you have some sense of your destiny, you see opportunity and you grasp at the opportunity. Just know you're not the only one that's aware. And whatever little unhealed drive in you is probably going to show in how you grasp.
Yes, right.
And somebody's going to be good enough to put two and two together and make an end run on you, because they're going to use the very thing that they observed you're chasing, because that automatically means you're going to have a blind spot there because you're after that thing. And so as long as they keep you looking at that, they can. And so this is how Jezebel moves. This is how Python's spirit moves. This is how, And so the kind of the upshot of what I'm saying is a more productive approach that I believe is just in line with the principles of the kingdom of heaven is, when you see the opportunity, understand that every trap is going to be well baited. So if you know that, also understand that many kingdom opportunities, many divine assignments are going to be a little bit camouflaged. So when you observe the opportunity, if you have the wisdom to go, God, is that my opportunity? Then he can either say, yes, no, wait a minute, whatever. And then I believe you did have the wisdom not to grasp, even though you left where you came from feeling a little hurt and a little passed over, or deeply hurt and passed over and all of that. But your Father in heaven and your earthly father were both running interference.
Yes.
And you had the wisdom not to stick your hand in the trap just because you saw a shiny penny. And so by passing that test, God protected you from, there were absolutely people there, because I know enough about the situation to know there would have been people after your throat. And so you missed out on a world of pain and hurt.
Yep.
And then God brought you around to a point where, because you had already decided you weren't grasping for the opportunity and all that, but when an opportunity for obedience came, and this to me is usually the key, kingdom advancement, kingdom, what do you call it? Promotion.
Kingdom promotion, yeah.
Usually happens when everyone else is looking at opportunity and you move into obedience.
Come on.
Understanding that a lot of opportunities are traps and a lot of apparent problems are opportunities. And once you understand that it's him that knows all that.
Yeah.
And you move into obedience.
Because then you can't fail.
Literally can't fail.
You are so bulletproof That's why, and we don't even have time to. Maybe we can explore this and unpack this some more on the next episode. But like when you're truly walking inside your assignment, kingdom calling, purpose, destiny, all of the above, you're so bulletproof that you don't even have to fear death.
Right.
Because until the assignment is done, you are very much still a player.
This is that swagger we were talking about a couple episodes ago. Because if you die, it was your day to die.
It was your day to die.
If you fail, that's what he was doing.
The assignment was complete at that point. That's why Paul can easily say, I've ran the race. I fought the good fight.
Yeah.
Like, I am dying right now because it is time for me to.
What's that guy, Agabus? Was that his name? Threw Paul's coat around his shoulders, a prophet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Threw Paul's coat around his shoulders and said, the man that wears this coat, did he say will be beheaded or will die in Rome?
I think he said, like, would die.
Will die in Rome. You know how dramatic that is? You're at a preacher's conference and this prophet come running out, snatching your coat, throwing it over his... And prophet of God, I'm not saying anything against him. What he said was true.
Almost as crazy as being at a business meeting and the man calls out the word from God.
Because prophets are unhinged.
Yeah.
The man that wears this coat will die in Rome. And Paul goes, give me my coat. I got to go to Rome. But that's the thing.
And not worry about the shipwreck.
Right.
That's happening.
Because I'm going to Rome.
Going to Rome.
Jesus said, let's go to the other side. Yeah. Why are we, right? All that. So this whole thing to me, this whole story points at, if you move into it's the one thing neither the enemy nor self-promoting people ever see coming. When everybody else is chasing opportunity and you choose obedience, it rips a hole in the universe. I mean that in the most literal way possible. It tears a hole in the time-space continuum.
That's so profound.
You go to obedience, you will hear crickets that aren't even born yet. The whole universe just looking at you like,
what? Yeah.
That's not even in the code.
Yeah.
And that's, I know. I see the clock. But because that's what I came here thinking about tonight was the knowledge of good and evil operating system. And I knew it was going to tie in, but about 20 minutes ago I saw it. Because this whole thing, you said repentance is kind of a loaded word. Why do we feel the way we do about it? You know. And you made this profound statement. You made so many profound statements in a row that I had to pick one. But another one that you had made was, no, I'm not kidding. Like you just dropped gems for like 5 minutes.
Trying to keep up with you.
Straight. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going back to the first one. But another one that you dropped in that little tirade you had was you said that a lot of times, I've never heard anyone observe this, that a lot of times finding your destiny feels like rediscovering your favorite song.
Yeah, it's like rediscovery.
It's not discovery, it's rediscovery.
It's rediscovery.
And what really hit me is that's because that is what it's recovery. Because everything we're talking about, all these weeks and all this infuriating attempt to be heard in the chaos is all tied back to that the whole system of the world is dragging everyone inexorably down into the final chapter of the fall, of the curse. Everything that's playing out around us in the entire world right now is designed to ensure that the maximum number of human souls get sucked into the abyss. And I'm not even talking about eternal conscious torment here. I'm just talking about chaos, disillusion, wreckage, destruction, division, I probably already said confusion, but I'm talking about get sucked into the vortex of entropy, of everything falling apart and going to hell in a handbasket, because that's what can be leveraged and manipulated the best.
Yeah.
And so everything is pulling everybody into that, and it's if the fall in the garden opened a whirlpool in the sea of human existence, this is that moment when it has picked up, right before the whirlpool disappears.
Yeah.
And it's just hit like critical velocity. I don't know what the technical term for that would be, but this is that moment. It's got the most suction it's ever had. It's got the most draw it's ever had. It goes the deepest it's ever gone.
Right.
It's pulling more people in than it's ever pulled in. It's now reached back across all of the systems of government and structures of the world, and now it's fully pulling religion and the family in. Like those institutions kind of stood a little bit on the perimeter of all that, but they're now getting totally sucked into the vortex. And that's the whole system of the world. And the whole idea of this podcast is if you're spinning around and around, and unlike everyone else around you who is blissfully unaware, you're one of the many now, and thank God, even though it is a remnant, it is many, you're one of the many who are now aware of the vortex.
Starts there.
It starts there. And so if you're one of the ones feeling dizzy, praise God.
Yeah.
But so many of those are getting sucked in deeper. It's kind of like, I need to mix the metaphor. There's also like a quicksand metaphor here.
Right.
They're getting sucked in the deepest by their struggle to get free.
The more you struggle, the harder it is to get out. Yeah.
And somehow, because the enemy is the master of illusion, most of them think they have broken free. And that's what makes it so bad. That's the layer that's making it, because they are now convinced that they're awake and free. They're out of the matrix. And so it's like they were asleep, so they didn't know they were spinning. Now they're in a trance. They're awake, but they're not. And so now their eyes are open, but again, they've just gone back to their spinning and they don't know it. And so if you're one of the ones that's struggling with all of that, Antikemi that's the whole concept here. How do we opt out of that? Right? Like, where do you start? What do you do? And so what I want to express is that everything in the world is functioning on the backbone of this, what John St. Julian calls the knowledge of good and evil operating system. And that's a profoundly good way of describing it. And I was thinking tonight as I walked in, what's a simple way that I could describe the knowledge of good and evil operating system? Because if I could say it to you this way, one of the simple ways to explain what happened when we ate the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is that we co-opted the ability or we asserted our right to make our own evaluations about the moral values of light and shadow. So yeah, that'll work. So everything in the world, everything in this life is light and shadow.
Everything. Yep.
And so some things that happen, I don't really have to explain to you what light and shadow is, because you know it. Like, the things that are light are things that draw you, and you want to bask in them, and you want to move toward them, and the things that are shadow make you uncomfortable, and they're dark. But the idea of attaching an objective judgment to that about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that is the quality of the knowledge of good and evil operating system. So it used to be that, think of this, when the Lord told Eve what to expect in a fallen world, he didn't say, now you're going to have pain in childbirth. He said your pain will be greatly increased. He couldn't explain to her in that moment the difference between pain and suffering.
Come on.
Because she was always going to have the pain, because there are biological realities in play.
Yep.
So he couldn't say to her, now you're going to deal with suffering, because she didn't have the context for it. But when Eve went to give birth after that, what she discovered is, I have opinions, very strong opinions, about whether what I'm feeling right now is good or bad, scary or not scary. I'm going to quit hitting this mic because I'm probably beating their eardrums. But so what really happened to Eve when he said, you're greatly increase your pain in childbearing, what he's telling her is, it's going to be a totally different experience. Same pain, though. I think that's what I want people to understand, is he can't tell her a word she doesn't understand.
Right. And it's still hinging on obedience.
Right. And so, again, he tells her, your desire is going to be against your husband. Antikemi. And so all of these things are products of all of us having these moral judgments about experience. This is a good experience, that's a bad experience. And all of that is because we took on the capacity to decide for ourselves what's good and what's bad. Yeah. Whereas when our Father allowed us to go through suffering and we were not attaching moral valuations to that, the operating system was obedience and life. Like, it wasn't good and evil. It was just, there was obedience and there was disobedience. And almost everything was obedience.
Yes.
And there was just one thing that if you did that was disobedience. Uh-huh. So that operating system had discomfort, had shadow, had being cold, had being hot, but it didn't have the baggage attached to it that turns those things into suffering, misery, depression, all of the shame and everything that we deal with. All of that comes from this. We now attach moral value to these comfortable and uncomfortable experiences. And so that knowledge of good and evil operating system, a simple way to explain it to me, as I was walking in the night, I thought, in the daylight, we look out and we see a car over there and a tree over there and a mailbox there, and we walk outside totally free of all, worry, concern. We know what's what. We see it. We avoid the stuff we don't want to interact with. We move toward the stuff we do. At night, we go outside and we see all the same stuff, but what we see is just these shadows of things. And we kind of write a narrative in our mind about what they are. And then they provoke all kinds of complicated feelings and experiences in us, because in the absence of total light in that moment, we're attaching moral value to those things.
Come on.
And so it's like that shadow over there suddenly might be the Scranton Strangler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a totally different experience. Same stuff. Totally different experience, because now I'm making these valuations about what's what and what could happen, and so I want people to understand that when we go back to the obedience and life operating system, what's actually happening is we're opting out of the knowledge of good and evil operating system. And this is the most Antikemi thing you can do.
Right.
And in doing that, you tear an actual wormhole through this universe, through this illusion that we're living in. And you wind up moving through this realm operating by non-Newtonian physics. You are running on a different operating system. And you the viruses don't impact you. The malware can't attach to you. The cookies can't find you. And the whole world has to watch God prepare a table for you in the presence of your enemies, and there's nothing they can do about it. When it wasn't time for Jesus to die, he just slipped through the crowd because his hour hadn't come. And so when you move in that obedience and life operating system, oneness with God, oneness with your brothers and sisters, oneness with his creation, and free of that separation, when you're living in the presence of God and you are walking by faith and trust in obedience, and you coming to know him and realizing that you didn't have to go up to find him or down to get him, that he's been inside of you the whole time, that God in heaven lives in you and through you, sees through you, moves through you, speaks through you. You break the game. You and I are sitting here tonight, living in our destiny, having to choose to continue at a whole different level than we had ever had to deal with it before, to continue to say, when God says jump, yes, sir, and jump, having to choose to continue to believe, because we're always going to confront that fallen nature.
Yes, sir.
Every time there's a new level of the same lesson, we beat the game at that level. Now we go up to the next one, and we have to choose to be still and know that nothing's changed as long as we stay off that operating system, as long as we don't grasp, as long as we don't cling, as long as we press on, that it's going to continue to bring otherworldly results, just like it has to this point. And all of that is called, the Bible has a word for it, dominion. It's called subduing the earth.
Yes, sir.
Ruling over it, taking care of it, and walking with God daily in the cool of the day. And that's why finding your destiny feels like recovery, feels like rediscovery instead of just discovery.
You're just coming back to the original intent. You're back in the garden.
You're back in the garden.
That's why the Protestant Bible starts with the garden and it ends with us back.
Hello.
In the complete wholeness of that garden.
And that's all repentance is. Turning back to God.
Yep.
And so it just, to me, it's all summed up. 2 Corinthians 7. Paul said, I'm not sorry that I sent that severe letter to you. I'm reading in the New Living Translation, verse 8, 2 Corinthians 7:8. I'm not sorry that I sent that severe letter to you, though I was sorry at first, for I know it was painful for you for a little while. Now I'm glad I sent it, not because it hurt you, but because the pain caused you to repent and change your ways. It was the kind of sorrow God wants his people to have, so you were not harmed by us in any way. For that kind of sorrow God wants us to experience leads us away from sin and results in salvation. There's no regret for that kind of sorrow. I think the NIV says it super simply like godly sorrow leaves no regret. But worldly sorrow, which lacks repentance, results in spiritual death. Just see what this godly sorrow produced in you: such earnestness, such concern to clear yourself, such indignation, such alarm, such longing to see me, such zeal, and such readiness to punish wrong. You showed that you have done everything necessary to make things right. And for funsies, in the Second Testament, a New Translation, it just says, because even if I pained you in my letter, I don't experience regret, even if I were experiencing regret, for I see that that letter pained you, even if for an hour. Now I rejoice, not because you were pained, but because you were pained into conversion. For you were pained consistent with God, so you were not in one matter damaged from us. For a consistent with God pain works conversion to an unregrettable deliverance. Listen to this, but the cosmos's pain, the knowledge of good and evil operating systems pain, but the cosmos's pain effects death. For look, this same consistent with God pain effected so much seriousness for you, but also what defense of yourselves, what indignation, what awe, what longing, what zeal, what right making. And so, man, that's the deal. Repentance is not a loaded word except from within the knowledge of good and evil operating system. If we will come out of that and receive it in the coding it was written in, the coding of obedience and life, unity with God, if we'll come out of it and receive it in that way, repentance becomes this incredible superpower that puts you back in the garden, back in your assignment, back in your dominion. You know what I mean? Back in fellowship.
Yes, sir.
And so if you're listening to this tonight and you realize, God's kind of saying to you what he said to me in January of 2008, my preacher, you are in direct disobedience to me. Even when God rebukes us, that's the first time anybody but me ever called me a preacher other than God. God told me I was.
Yeah.
But like the angel of the Lord came and took me on a vision quest and showed me. But even in his rebuke, my father reaffirmed. So if you receive it in the spirit it's given in, it just resets you back out. It instantly writes out all the corrupted code, all the malware, and you're
right back to where you need to be.
And you just threw the devil the biggest left hook imaginable, because when the world's set before you, opportunity, carrot and stick, opportunity and fear, greed, desire, and terror and doubt. And when he set this system of ones and zeros in front of you, you chose three. Like it breaks the whole game. You have to say, you have to give me a yes or a no. No, I'm going to go this other way. I'm giving him my yes, and now suddenly you're in the system, but you're not of it.
That's so good. That's so good. Obedience.
Yeah, man, I guess that's what this episode wound up being about. I think we were just preaching ourselves happy.
Yeah, but I know it's going to help somebody.
Yeah, because it helped me.
Yeah.
Just reminded me, like, hey, we're going to get through this the same way we got to this. Like,
Yes, sir.
this journey, how many iterations of this do you have to? Once you start beating levels, you realize
The octane that we are going to run our spiritual engine on is going to be obedience. That's it. That's it. Yeah,
it's the most Antikemi thing you can do.
that's literally the most Antikemi thing you could do.
Just choose obedience, trust and obey. Nobody knows what to do with. I'm telling you, church people will look at you like you have lost your ever loving. What? I actually had somebody say to me when we came to Promised Land the first time to serve under Bishop, a well-respected, well-known pastor. Why'd you go to Promised Land? Because there was so much baggage connected. You know, why'd you go to Promised Land? God said to. I know, but why'd you go? That's what God told us to do. Right. But because he was trying to warn me that what he thought I was after,
You was never going to get.
which is funny because,
Well.
but it is really like it breaks even for good godly people within a religious mindset.
Right.
He just kept going, yeah, I know, bro. I get it. But like, give me your, like, what's your thinking? I don't have any. Like, God told us to do this. And he was like, and he, wound up just kind of annoyed because he's like, this guy just won't shoot me straight about like why they're there. I'm telling you, it breaks the system. Nobody knows what to do with it. And it leaves you untouchable because nobody can take anything away from you.
No.
That
No, not at all. So if you want to break the system, live in Antikemi, obey God. We're going to leave it at that. We love you. Thank you for tuning in. Share this with somebody who you know is not living right. I'm just playing. Share it with somebody who you know is going to find the message valuable, and that's anybody and everybody.
Yeah, and if you don't know what God is asking of you, like, well, how do I obey? Ask him. Just ask him. What do you want from me?
That's right. He'll tell you.
Show me, tell me, whatever. Like, he will.
Yeah.
Love you.
Love y'all. Till next time.